Hello everyone today. I want to tell you about something that amazed me so much. The mat tents of North Ethiopia in the Danakil desert. Imagine a place that is so hot, so dry, and so wide that it almost feels like another planet. This is where the Afar people live, and guess what? They don't live in houses made of bricks or cement. They live in tents made from mats. Yes, mats. Isn't that so cool? These tents are not just ordinary shelters. They are light enough to be carried when the families move, because the desert people travel a lot with their camels and goats. The mats are woven from palm leaves and grasses, and they are bent over strong wooden sticks to make a round, cozy home. It looks simple, but it is really smart. The tent keeps them cool in the burning sun and safe during the desert nights. What I love most is how the women are the ones who build the tents. Can you believe that? They roll up the mats, tie them on camels, carry them to the new place, and then rebuild the home again. It shows how strong, skilled, and creative they are. For me, these mat tents are more than just shelters. They are a symbol of survival, family, and tradition. Even in one of the toughest deserts on Earth, the people found a way to live happily, with homes they can carry on their journeys. So next time you see a tent, think about the amazing mat tents of the Danakil desert dwellers, tents that tell stories of courage, of women's power, and of a life that dances with the desert winds. Thank you. Mat tents of North Ethiopia, especially in the Danakil desert, are made from palm leaves and grasses, and this is one of the most fascinating things about them. When you think about a home, most people imagine walls made of bricks, cement, or wood. But here in one of the hottest and driest places in the world, homes are woven from nature itself. The people who live in the desert take the materials they can find, such as palm leaves, reeds, and different kinds of grasses, and carefully weave them into mats that can later be shaped into shelters. These mats are not just simple pieces of woven leaves. They are designed with skill, patience, and an understanding of how to make something light, but also strong enough to survive in a desert where the sun burns all day and the winds blow across the open land. Every strip of palm leaf or grass has to be collected, dried, and then woven together. And this weaving itself is an art passed down through generations. It takes knowledge to know which plants are best to use, which season is best for collecting them, and how to weave them so that they stay firm and do not fall apart when they are rolled or bent into shape. These mats are also very flexible. Unlike hard walls or heavy materials, the mats can be bent and tied onto wooden poles, forming the curved roof of the tent. That curve is very important because it gives the tent its rounded shape, allowing the hot desert air to move around more easily and keeping the inside cooler than it would be under a flat roof. The natural material also has tiny gaps in it, which lets just enough air pass through so that it feels breathable inside the tent. At the same time, the weaving is tight enough to keep out the strong sunlight and give shade, which is extremely important when the ground outside is almost too hot to walk on. In many ways, the design is perfect for desert life, even though it looks so simple from the outside. Another special thing about using palm leaves and grasses is that they are materials that can always be renewed. When a family needs new mats, they can gather fresh leaves and grasses again. This makes the mat tents not only practical, but also connected to the environment in a sustainable way. There is no need for machines, factories, or expensive tools. The people use their hands, their knowledge, and the plants around them. This connection with nature is something really beautiful. The mats are not just made from plants. They carry the knowledge of how humans have lived with the land for centuries. Because the mats are lightweight, they are also perfect for the nomadic life of the desert dwellers. Families in the Danakil desert move often with their animals, searching for grazing land and water. They cannot afford to have heavy houses or buildings that stay in one place. So, having a home that is made of mats means they can simply roll it up, tie it onto a camel, and carry it with them to their next location. When they arrive, they unroll the mats, bend them over wooden frames, and within a short time, they have a new home standing. All of this is possible because the mats are made of palm leaves and grasses, light but still strong enough to be reused many times. The weaving of mats is also closely tied to the role of women in these communities. It is usually the women who make the mats, weaving for hours under the sun or in the shade, talking together, and passing on the skill to younger girls. Each mat holds the time and care of the women who made it. Some families even add small decorations or special weaving patterns that make their mats unique. This shows that the mats are not just practical objects, but also a form of cultural expression. Through them, the women show their patience, strength, and creativity. The mats also have meaning beyond just being building materials. When a mat is spread out to form the roof of a tent, it becomes part of the family's shelter, a safe space where they eat together, rest, and share their lives. When rolled up, the mats represent the possibility of moving forward, carrying the family's home on a journey to a new place. Palm leaves and grasses may seem like simple things to people who see them as just plants, but in the hands of the desert dwellers, they become the foundation of a life in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Lightweight and easy to carry for nomadic life is one of the most important qualities of the mat tents in North Ethiopia, especially for the people of the Danakil Desert. The Afar people who live there are nomadic, which means they are always moving from one place to another. They do not stay in one village or one location for too long because the desert does not allow that. The land is dry, water is scarce, and animals like camels and goats need to keep moving to find new grass or small shrubs to eat. For this reason, families cannot build permanent homes made of stone or bricks, because such homes would be impossible to take along when they travel. Instead, they need something that can move with them, and the mat tents are the perfect solution. The tents are made from woven mats and wooden poles, and both parts are designed to be carried easily. The mats can be rolled up tightly into bundles. Once rolled, they are not very heavy, so women or children can handle them, and camels can carry many at once. The wooden poles that make up the frame of the tent are usually long but light, and they can be tied together and placed on top of the camel's back. When the family is ready to move, they take down the tent, roll the mats, tie everything securely, and load it up. Within a short time, their entire house is ready to travel with them. This ability to carry the home on a journey is what allows the Afar people to survive in such a difficult desert environment. The lightweight nature of the tents also makes setting them up and taking them down very fast. When the family reaches a new location, they do not need days to build a new house. They simply unroll the mats, bend them over the wooden frame, and tie them down. Within hours, a home is ready, giving them shade and protection from the desert sun. This speed is very important because nomadic families often travel long distances, and when they finally stop, they need shelter quickly, especially for the children, the elderly, and the animals they depend on. The lightweight tents make this process smooth and practical. Another part of their usefulness is how they fit the rhythm of nomadic life. A permanent house ties people to one place, but the Afar people cannot live that way. Their lives are linked to the movements of their animals, to the seasons, and to the search for water. A home that is heavy and fixed would trap them, but a home that is light and portable gives them freedom. The tents are not just objects to live in, they are tools that make nomadic life possible. Without them, the families would struggle to move as often as they need to, and the desert would be much harsher. The lightweight design is also important for the animals that carry the tents. Camels are the main transport animals in the Danakil Desert, and while camels are strong, they still need to carry things that are not too heavy if they are going to travel long distances under the burning sun. The rolled mats and wooden poles balance perfectly with what a camel can handle. This relationship between the tents and the camels is part of a bigger system of survival, where every detail has to work together so the people can keep moving without being slowed down. The way the tents are made also helps them stay light. Palm leaves and grasses are the main materials, and these are not only easy to find but also naturally light compared to bricks, clay, or even thick wood. The weaving is done in a way that keeps the mats strong, but does not make them heavy. The wooden poles are chosen carefully. often from specific types of trees that are strong enough to support the tent, but not too heavy to carry. The knowledge of which materials to use and how to prepare them has been passed down for generations, ensuring that the tents stay both durable and easy to transport. Life in the desert is always about balance, carrying only what is necessary, never more, because extra weight means extra struggle in the heat and dryness. The tents reflect this balance perfectly. They give comfort and safety, but they never become a burden. A family can carry everything they need for their home on the backs of a few camels and set out on a journey without fear of being slowed down. The lightweight tents are part of a lifestyle where mobility is not just a choice, but a necessity for survival in the Danakil desert. Women build and rebuild the tents in the Danakil desert, and this role is one of the most striking and powerful parts of life among the Afar people of North Ethiopia. In many parts of the world, building a home is thought of as the responsibility of men. But here in the desert, it is different. The women take charge of creating the family's shelter, and this shows not only their strength, but also their deep knowledge of how to work with the materials that make the tents possible. When a family decides to move to a new location, it is the women who carefully take down the mats, roll them tightly, and prepare them to be carried on camels. They know how to handle the mats so that they do not break or tear, and they understand how to pack everything in a way that makes it easier to set up again. When the family arrives in a new place, it is again the women who start rebuilding. They know exactly how to arrange the wooden poles, how to bend them into arches, and how to tie them so they stay firm even against desert winds. Once the frame is standing, they take the woven mats and lay them across the structure. Each mat has to be placed carefully, with the right overlaps, so that the sun is blocked and the air can still flow inside. The women work together, and often it is a social activity where mothers, daughters, sisters, and even neighbors join hands. Younger girls learn by watching, and then by practicing with smaller tasks, gradually gaining the skills to one day build tents for their own families. The work of building and rebuilding is not just physical, but also creative. Women bring beauty into the tents by weaving mats with different patterns, or decorating them with small touches that show pride in their work. Some mats may have distinctive styles that can identify which family made them, showing how the skills of weaving and tent making carry a sense of identity. Even though the desert life is tough and requires constant movement, the women make sure the tents are not only functional, but also warm and welcoming inside, turning them into true homes. Taking down and setting up tents is also a symbol of how adaptable the women are. In the desert, life can change suddenly. The family may need to move because of lack of water, because of grazing needs for their animals, or because of weather changes. Every move means taking apart the home and creating it again in a new place. This rhythm of breaking down and rebuilding is part of their daily life, and it requires energy, patience, and dedication. Women do this tirelessly, showing a kind of strength that is often unseen but deeply respected within their communities. The skill of building tents is passed through generations like an inheritance. Girls grow up watching their mothers weaving mats, tying ropes, and bending poles. Slowly, they are given small responsibilities, like helping roll mats or holding poles, and as they grow older, they learn the techniques fully. This knowledge is not written in books but carried in memory and practice, taught by doing, by repeating, and by living. By the time a girl becomes a young woman ready to start her own household, she already knows how to create a shelter from start to finish. This transfer of knowledge ensures that no matter how many generations pass, the tradition of women building and rebuilding tents continues. In many ways, this role gives women a strong position in their families and communities. The ability to build a home is central to survival, and since women are the ones responsible, they are seen as the keepers of stability. The men may handle herding animals or guiding camels, but it is the women who make sure there is always a shelter waiting at the end of the journey. Their contribution is not hidden or secondary. It is at the very heart of daily life. There is also a spiritual and emotional layer to their work. Building the tent is not only about shelter, but also about creating a space of safety and belonging. When women weave mats and shape them into a home, they are building the place where children will sleep, where meals will be shared, where laughter will echo, and where family bonds will grow. Every time the tent is taken down and built again, it is like creating a new beginning, a fresh start in a new place, while still carrying the essence of home. This cycle is part of the resilience of the Afar people, and the women's hands make it possible. Provide cool shelter in the burning desert is one of the greatest purposes of the mat tents of the Afar people, and it shows how their design is perfectly suited to the extreme conditions of the Danakil desert. The Danakil is known as one of the hottest places on Earth, where daytime temperatures can rise so high that the ground itself feels like fire and the air shimmers with heat. For people who live in such an environment, having a place that offers protection from the sun is not just a comfort, it is a necessity for survival. The mat tents, though simple in appearance, are carefully built to give shade, airflow, and a cool refuge where families can rest and continue their lives, even when the outside world is harsh. The mats themselves are woven from palm leaves and grasses, and these materials play a big role in cooling the inside of the tent. Unlike metal or stone, which absorb and hold heat, the mats are light and breathable. They create shade by blocking the direct sunlight, but because of the way they are woven, tiny spaces between the fibers allow air to move. This airflow makes the inside of the tent much more comfortable than the outside, almost like a natural air conditioner. The rounded shape of the tent also helps because hot air can rise toward the top, while the lower parts remain cooler, giving people a place to lie down and escape the most intense heat. The ability to provide cool shelter is especially important during the middle of the day, when the desert sun is strongest. Families and their animals often travel in the early morning or late afternoon, avoiding the worst heat. At noon, they rest in their tents, where the mats provide shade that allows them to regain energy. Without such a place, it would be nearly impossible to live in the desert, because the heat drains the body quickly and can be dangerous. Inside the tent, however, the family can share meals, children can sleep, and life can continue despite the burning sun outside. Another factor that makes the tents effective is the way the mats can be adjusted depending on the season or the time of day. Women who build the tents know how to overlap the mats more tightly when the sun is too strong, creating denser shade, or leave small openings for more airflow when the temperature drops slightly in the evening. This flexibility shows how the tents are not just fixed shelters, but living designs that respond to the environment. The mats are tied and arranged in ways that maximize comfort, and this knowledge comes from generations of experience in the desert. The cooling effect of the tents also protects the most vulnerable members of the family. Children, elderly people, and even newborn babies need special care in such extreme weather, and the tent becomes the safe space where they can avoid direct sun exposure. The animals too, like goats or baby camels, sometimes rest in the shade near the tents, showing that the shelter serves not only people but the entire household. This makes the tent the heart of desert life, the place that holds the family together and keeps them safe against the burning climate. Even during the night, the tents provide comfort, because the desert can change quickly from hot to cool. The mats that keep the sun away during the day also hold enough warmth to make the nights more bearable. This balance is what makes the tents so remarkable. They adapt to both extremes of the desert, cooling when it is hot and protecting when it gets cooler after sunset. The knowledge of how to create a cool shelter using only natural materials is an example of how human creativity works hand in hand with the environment. The Afar people did not have access to modern technology or manufactured cooling systems, but by observing nature and using what was around them, they developed a shelter that fits perfectly with their needs. The mat tents are living proof of how simple materials, when used wisely, can solve the toughest challenges, like surviving in one of the hottest places in the world. The shade inside the tents is not just physical relief. It is a space where energy is preserved, where stories are told, where children play without being burned by the sun, and where the family finds peace amid the desert heat. Symbol of survival, family, and tradition is what the mat tents of. Afar people truly represent in the Danakil desert. In such a harsh land where the environment challenges life every day, a tent is never just a piece of woven matting. It is the very heart of existence, something that carries within it the strength of survival, the closeness of family, and the deep continuity of tradition. Every mat tent tells the story of how human beings can create a way of life even in the most difficult conditions, and it becomes more than just a shelter. It becomes a symbol of identity and resilience. Survival in the Danakil desert is not easy. The heat is extreme, water is scarce, and the land is not friendly for farming or permanent settlement. For the Afar people, survival depends on moving constantly with their animals, searching for pasture and water. The mat tent makes this survival possible because it is light enough to carry, strong enough to last, and simple enough to rebuild again and again. Without these tents, the people could not continue their nomadic life, and they would not be able to endure the endless cycle of moving across the desert. The tent becomes the one steady thing they can rely on, the portable home that protects them from the sun, from the wind, and from the uncertainty of the desert itself. In this way, it is a powerful symbol of survival, proof that life can go on even when the environment seems impossible. But the tent is also a symbol of family. Every time it is built, it becomes the gathering place where everyone comes together. Inside its walls of woven mats, meals are shared, stories are told, and children grow up watching their parents and grandparents, keeping the family united. The circular shape of the tent itself brings people closer, as there are no corners to divide the space. Everyone sits around looking toward each other, and this creates a feeling of togetherness that strengthens family bonds. When the family moves, the tent moves with them, carrying not just mats and poles, but also memories of laughter, conversations, and life lived together. It is a reminder that home is not a fixed building, but the people you share it with, and the tent becomes the physical form of that idea. Tradition is also woven into every mat and every pole of the tent. The knowledge of how to build it is passed from generation to generation, mostly through the hands of women. Girls learn from their mothers and grandmothers how to weave the mats, how to choose the right plants, how to bend the poles, and how to tie everything securely. These skills are not written down in books, but they live in practice, in the daily work of families who continue to build their homes in the same way their ancestors did. The tent becomes a bridge between the past and the present, a living tradition that keeps culture alive. Each tent is not only a shelter, but also a reminder of the ancestors who first created this way of life, and of the generations who preserved it. The symbolism of the tents can also be seen in the way they represent women's strength and creativity. Since women are the ones who make, carry, and rebuild the tents, the home itself becomes a sign of their role in sustaining both survival and tradition. Through the tent, the story of women's power in the community is told, as they are the builders of the place where family life happens and the guardians of the skills that keep the tradition alive. The act of setting up a tent is more than practical work. It is an expression of responsibility, care, and cultural pride. Even when families move, leaving behind a spot in the desert and heading to a new one, the tent makes the journey with them, showing that tradition is not tied to the ground, but to the people themselves. Wherever the tent is rebuilt, the family is home, and wherever the family is home, the tradition continues. The mats that form the tent walls are like threads that weave together survival, family, and tradition into one structure. They stand in the burning desert not only as shelters, but as living symbols of how the Afar people continue their way of life with strength, unity, and respect for what has been passed down to them.